On this episode, we finally refinished the Pawn Shop shotgun.
Hey guys, my name is Dave Tim. Thanks for checking back with us on the series of the Pawn Shop Shotgun. As you can see here, we still have our bin of parts, and we're going to be talking about refinishing the major components of the shotgun today. In our last video, we did teardown, so now it is time to refinish. Now, before we get into degreasing, blasting, and actually refinishing the components, we're going to talk about which spray can finish we have picked. And we have 4 different ones here that I've just basically got some scrap pieces, blasted them, degreased them, and then applied them with each of the finishes. And we're going to do a quick little test on which finish we're going to use. Now, in the spirit of do-it-yourself at home, of the Pawn Shop Shotgun kind of series, we are going to use a spray can finish. And we are going to use a spray can finish that is air cured. So we're not going to need any ovens or anything like that. However, we are going to blast the surface of the receiver, magazine tube, the tube here, the barrel, and the magazine extension. We are going to blast and paint all of those. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, not everybody has a blaster. Well, every small town even has like a blasting / powder coat company that you could have something blasted for under $40. If you're paying more than $40 to get just those few parts blasted, you're paying way too much. And make sure that they're going to blast them with appropriate materials, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So let's get to it on the paint finish that we are using. And the contenders are Brownells Alumahide 2, Rust-Oleum Ultra 2X, Krylon Ultra Flat Black, their camo finish, and then we have the barbecue, Rust-Oleum High Heat. And a lot of guys use a variety of these in different gun finishes. So here are the samples. And like I said, I've degreased and blasted them prior to doing each finish and let them cure for about a week. As you can see, they all have a nice flat black finish. The blackest probably goes to the high heat here, and otherwise they all look good. And I've kind of handled them a little bit so you guys can just get an idea of what is what. But we're just going to do some basic quick tests just to see. So a scratch test, just with a pick here with light pressure, this one peels and scratches pretty easily. This one scratches, but we're not removing as much paint. You can probably see that on camera. So I mean, we're scratching with a sharp instrument here. I don't expect much, but the Ultra actually did pretty good too. I mean, you can see there's not a lot of paint removed. And then here's the Alumahide. Look at that. That is doing pretty good. Now, some people might be saying I'm using different pressure, and I'm not. I have nothing to gain from this. So now we're just going to do a couple quick solvent tests. First one is just denatured alcohol, which is a real common cleaner degreaser that I use in the shop. With just a little bit there. Next, we'll step it up, maybe some acetone. We'll try that. Oh yeah, that one came right off with acetone. And granted, you're probably not going to be using acetone to clean your guns, but I just, for curiosity's sake, that one held up pretty well. And again, the Brownells there. I mean, we definitely took some, but we're not down to the finish like we are on some of these. Now, what if you use an aggressive solvent? One of the most aggressive solvents that I'm aware of is Sweets 762, which has an ammonia component in it. Pretty solid. Pretty solid there too. So that's just like a really quick chemical abrasion test. Now, some people might be asking for like salt tests and corrosion tests and all that other stuff, and we just don't have the capabilities to do that. So this is just a quick down and dirty test of just the different finishes. And what we're going to be going with is the Brownells Alumahide 2. And spoiler alert, I kind of had a feeling how this would go because we've tested some of these other paints before, and this is just what we had around the shop. Now, you might be saying, well, what about this based epoxy paint or this based super solvent paint or whatever, and I just don't have the time or the means to go out and source $20 bottles of spray paint. So we're just going to stick with what we had, and we're going to be going with the Brownells Alumahide 2, which, as you can see, it held up pretty well on the scratches. The denatured alcohol, the acetone, and even the sweets, it held up just fine, and it has a real nice, flat black finish that you can see, and it actually is pretty easy to apply. Now, the Brownells Alumahide does like to attach to a blasted surface. Now, we're going to talk about degreasing and blasting, because if you have your own blasting cabinet, you're probably going to want to degrease first, which is what we're going to do. However, if you don't, and you're going to take it someplace to get blasted, you're going to want to degrease it after, because you don't know if their media was contaminated with oils or lubricants or greases or anything like that, and you're going to want to make sure it's degreased before you start painting. Now, even if you degrease before blasting, I still do a degrease after, just to make sure, and I only handle the part with gloves. So we're going to get ready for degreasing and blasting. What I like to use for degreasing is a stainless steel pan or tub like this. And this is from a restaurant supply house. I've cleaned it out. I've used this a lot. Now, as far as your degreasing agent, there's a variety of options. You can use something as simple as non-chlorinated brake parts cleaner. It works great. It's high pressure, so even if you had a little bit of gunk, the pressure generally, gets rid of things. You, of course, could use acetone, or you could use denatured alcohol. The biggest thing is we want to make sure we get rid of any contaminants on the parts, any greases, oils, even oil from your skin and lubricants, anything like that. We want to make sure we get this out. And we've already cleaned this. We want to make sure you clean it as well. So if you have an ultrasonic cleaner that's this big, great. Otherwise, literally get your favorite gun cleaning solvent, some rags, and start wiping down. The last thing you want is to degrease everything, and then all of a sudden we have a big chunk of carbon buildup or oil buildup powder, just gunk that's just going to get in the way. We want to make sure we start to treat all the parts as if they're going to be clean, so we want to make sure we're keeping our hands clean. The last thing you want to do is degrease everything and then go ahead and touch it with your hand and get oils on it. That's never a good thing. And also be careful if you have any lotions or anything like that on there too. If it mated with the surface, the paint would not adhere very well to that. So we're going to get all the parts that we're going to be painting. So these are the parts that we're going to use, and then if you have some lint-free rags or anything like that, that works just fine. Otherwise, these baby washcloths, they work really well because they're lint-free. So don't be afraid to just get down to it. So we're just going to start. We're just going to spray. The exterior surface. Of the components, and we're just going to wipe thoroughly, and you're going to see dirt, grime, maybe even a little bit of rust, things like that. I know there was some rust spots on not only the barrel and the receiver, but some other spots too that'll come off in blasting. So we want to make sure we're doing a really good job. I just realized one very important step, and that is make sure you're doing this in a well-ventilated area, of course, which we are, and make sure you have some eye protection. Getting a splash of chemicals or something like that in your face would be pretty embarrassing. So I should have definitely put this on in the beginning. So now that these parts are degreased, we're only going to touch them with gloves. We're going to go ahead and prep the blast cabinet and do our blasting next. Now that we've got the blasting done, we have a nice rough finish for the paint to adhere to. Now we used 100 grit aluminum oxide, but 100 grit garnet would work just fine too. And we don't need to take this down to complete bare metal. We just need to rough the surface, get rid of any shiny surfaces, get rid of any rust, things like that, just to get something to paint, something to paint to stick to. Now we did have a couple of rough spots on the barrel that were, kind of pits from rust that you can see that we had to, spend a little bit more time on. But again, we were able to rough it up to a nice uniform, dull finish. So I think this is going to turn out just fine. Now with the tube, I didn't take this down. I didn't want to remove all of the anodizing because the anodizing is what makes the aluminum really hard. So I just wanted to rough that up a little bit and take away some of the sheen. So again, it gives that paint something to stick to, but we're not reducing the hardness of the part. And there's a couple spots where it got a little bit more, than the others. But all in all, I think we are ready to do our final degrease. Now, with painting or coating or anything, prep work is everything. And if you don't do proper prep, you're not gonna have a good a finish as you can. So we're gonna degrease again, just make sure it is completely clear of any oils or solvents, and then we're gonna make sure it dries for about 30 minutes before we start painting. So we're ready to paint with our Brownells Alumahide 2 matte black finish. And what you'll need to paint is a well-ventilated area, some safety glasses, a respirator, a heat gun, or even an old hair dryer will work really well in between coats. Now we're not going to get into a full tutorial of how to apply the paint because Brownells actually has a really great video on their webpage that specifically focuses on how to apply Alumahide 2. Now before we actually paint, one of the things you have to do with this is literally shake the heck out of it. When you think you're done shaking, shake some more just for good measure. You want this very, very well shaken. So when you join us next, we'll be over with the paint booth, getting ready to paint our parts.
All right.
Well, that wraps up painting all of our parts for the pawn shop shotgun, and that'll just about conclude for this video. One more thing to talk about, you probably noticed during the painting segment that I did switch from the heat gun to the hair dryer, and for the environment of the shop today, having the extra output of the hair dryer worked out just fine. It didn't need the heat from the heat gun, so don't be afraid to steal a hair dryer from the missus or commandeer her old one. She's always looking for an excuse to upgrade. Now, with Alumahide 2, it dries to be a durable finish. However, it is air cured, so make sure that you leave this sit. Now we have it racked, it's not going to get dinged or touched. I'm actually going to move it to a dry room, such as like a heater room or utility room, something that is dry and warm, and you're going to want to let this cure for about a week, and then it's going to get that nice hard toughness that we know Alumahide to have. Don't handle it before then. Don't try to put it back together because the paint, while dry, still might be not cured, so it could have a ding from your fingernail or handling marks or things like that. So we don't want to assemble it right away, at least I don't. I like to let it wait at least a week to cure. So in the next video, we'll actually show you, get an up-close, detailed look at how the parts all turned out. We'll put the shotgun back together, and then in the last video, we'll be out at the range test firing our pawn shop shotgun. So it's been a really fun series so far. We hope you enjoyed it. We've gotten a lot of demand. It's been more popular than we anticipated, and we appreciate your patience. It's taken us over a year to get it done, but guys, we are busy. Believe it or not, we don't get paid hardly anything to make these videos. Our advertising revenue is nil. We're still well into the red as far as the video projects go. So please be patient. We don't get paid for this. If you want to send us money, that'll motivate us to do it faster. Please check out our Facebook page, like, share, and subscribe, and make sure you check out all of the other videos on our channel. Thank you guys very much for watching, and have a great day.